Today on Detroit Muscle, it's part 2 of our Cragar Camaro build, and we're gonna wrap this blown Chevy up with some suspension upgrades. Then it's a full custom paint job and graphics. Stick around to watch a late model transformation.
Today we're back working on our Cragar giveaway 2016 Camaro SS. You can enter at cragarwheel.com. If you remember, we stuffed an Edelbrock blower into this bow tie and made 578 horsepower to the wheels. Last time we plugged in a supercharger and some exhaust on our Cragar giveaway Camaro. Today we're going to be dialing in the suspension and handling. And one of the ways we're going to do that is with this kit from Chevrolet Performance. Now the kit includes high rate springs for the front and rear and specially tuned shocks and struts. It was designed by Camaro engineers at GM and tested at their proving grounds to ensure not only quality and safety, but also those improved handling characteristics that we're looking for. Now this kit lowers your car almost 1 inch all the way around, which lowers your center point of gravity, and it gives you that aggressive look that everybody's looking for. Now this kit has some unique part numbers to it, whether you've got an LT or an SS, coupe or convertible. So just make sure you pick the right one for whichever car you have.
We're going to start up front, and the first thing we're going to get off is going to be the strut assemblies. The wheel speed sensor needs to be disconnected from this bracket, which will also unbolt. Then we'll unhitch the upper sway bar link. Now we can start working on the strut itself. Once those bolts are out, we'll use a screw jack to put some load on the spring and knock those bolts out. Next, we'll go up top and undo the upper strut bolts. Now the strut is free.
Thank you. Now we're going to break this thing down primarily because we need some parts off of it, like this rubber boot and this upper mount. Now if you don't have one of these type of tools, just find some local suspension shop. They've probably got one. It wouldn't cost you a whole lot of money. A whole lot cheaper than a trip to the emergency room. Don't try to make something at home and get yourself hurt. These things use a series of metal fingers to compress the spring and allow you to access the pieces that you need. Once the top is pulled off, we can decompress it. We'll insert the new spring into the device, insert the factory boot and top, then squish it down to receive the reused components. With it fastened down, we can release it from our mechanism.
It's ready to be inserted into the car, starting with those top bolts we undid earlier. With those done, we can fasten it back to the spindle. While we're up front here, we're going to go ahead and address the brakes as well. Now, the factory SS brakes are 13.6 rotor with a 4-piston Brembo caliper. It's a really good brake setup. In fact, Chevrolet Performance offers this combo as an upgrade for the LT, but for upgrading the SS, they've got something even better. We're going to swap over to the Chevrolet Performance 6-piston Brembo setup with the 14.6-inch rotors. These vented and slotted Duralife rotors are a cast iron ring with aluminum hats and are going to deliver us both great everyday drivability and high-end performance for track use. The hardened surface will also give us reduced corrosion along with quieter braking and less vibration. Upgrading to these 6-piston calipers from the stock 4 pistons is going to give us more clamping force, which also means more stopping power. What's really cool about this kit is it comes with all the hoses and hardware you need to get it installed, and along with the brakes and the suspension we installed earlier, this stuff won't void your factory warranty.
All right guys, we've jumped here to the back side of the car so that we can go ahead and install the shock and the spring on this thing. That's going to be pretty simple. All we have to do is take the shock off, lower the control arm so that we can remove the spring, and then simply swap all that stuff out. So, no big task.
First thing to do, unbolt the top shock mount. Then there are a couple of bolts on the bottom of the shock and the control arm to take care of. Now we can lower the jack, holding the spring tight.
Once the shock is out, we'll get the spring pulled out as well. The new spring goes into the same place using the factory isolator. We'll remove the upper mount from the old shock, as well as this boot. Then we'll snag the bump stop too. All these pieces go into the new shock, then we're ready to install it.
Those same two bolts on the bottom will go in. Then we'll jump up top and cinch this thing down.
A late model custom paint job presents its own unique set of challenges. Stick around to see what it takes to lay down a one-of-a-kind look on a new Camaro.
Well, all right, guys, we got our suspension and drivetrain all dialed in, and now we're going to give this thing an attitude adjustment. If you remember back at our rendering, this isn't just some plain Jane black car. It's going to require some paint work. Now, we're going to have to disassemble it some, and it's going to look like we're putting it together and taking it apart a few times, but trust me, it's going to be worth it in the end. It's going to save us some work, and it's going to look pretty cool. See that? That guy's strong. All right, now we're gonna pull this little Camaro emblem off. Now I'm gonna use this panel clip or remover tool. Now you don't wanna just come in here and hook it in behind there and kind of pry it back, because the top part of this thing will actually dent or could dent the fender. What we're gonna do is put it in there and actually pull out. On this modern stuff, they really attach a whole bunch of items with that double-sided tape because it's just faster. Where back in the day, they had pins and those little speed nuts that you'd have to do. And I'm hoping there's not a hole behind there to line this thing up. Nope, just some gooey stuff. Okay, now to get this sticky stuff off, I'm gonna use what's called a pinstripe eraser. That works really well. All you have to do is chuck it up in the drill and get it to spinning. If you hold it up on one edge, you can actually walk it back and forth, and it'll roll that thing right off. Look at there.
We got to pull off anything that we don't plan on painting, as well as the stuff like seals that we don't want to get sprayed. We've got our Camaro all stripped down and cleaned up, and it's time to start prepping our panels for paint. Now, much of the car is going to remain black, but we can't just prep the areas that are going to be receiving color, because all of the panels that are getting color, well, those whole panels are going to have to be cleared in the end. So we have to make sure the surfaces are ready to accept the base and the clear coat. And the way we're going to do that is by wet sanding.
We're going to hit this with some 600 grit paper, which takes a little more work than the rougher grits. But we need a good finish with no scratches once the paint is laid down. Also, one thing about wet sanding is that you need to see what it looks like once it dries off.
So you can see right here where it's nice and smooth, that's what we're going after. See here, you can still see some of the orange peel, and there's even some areas where we barely even hit. So got to go spend some more time on this one. That's a lot better. This is what we're looking for. Now, I like to go slow and do little spots at a time and keep checking myself as I go, doing a little bit at a time, because I don't want to burn through that clear. Now, we have a black car, so it's not as important. You may not be able to see where we burn through the clear, but different colors, lighter colors, and especially metallics, you'll really be able to see through where you went through the clear even after you've already sprayed back over it. Especially in a spot like this, where at the top of the fender where you've got other panels adjacent, like a door, A-pillar, and a hood, if you burn through here, you may not only have to repaint the fender, but you'll also have to repaint those adjacent panels, and that's a lot of extra work. Now, we did a little small spot on the hood, but we've got to keep doing that throughout the whole car, so I better get to work.
Coming up, enough sanding. It's time to step in the booth and start laying down color.
All right, guys, we got our Camaro pushed into the booth, and it's obviously been sanded down. Now, we're making some pretty good headway of being able to spray on some color. But the next step, well, it's a bunch of taping.
This is another one of those unsexy parts to painting a car, but it's just as important as spraying. If you drop the ball here, you can wind up with overspray in the craziest places that you don't want it to be. When we're masking off our Camaro, on most of the panels, we're just going to use regular tape. The windshield's an exception though, because this seal that goes around the sides and the top, well, it just lays onto the painted surface. Well, we pulled that back, wet sanded in there for our paint to stick, but now we have to pull it back out of the way so that the paint can actually get down in there. We're going to do that with this trim masking tape. I cut off a little piece here so we can see how this works. This white is backing, and this blue part is actually the really hard plastic that's going to go behind the seal. So we just put this behind the seal here, just to the edge of that part, and we can peel the backing. And then the hard plastic sticks behind the seal and pulls it forward, and then we stick it down, and there it pulled the seal away. Now our paint and clear can get down in there, and then when we're finished, well, I'm masking.
Masking this can be done more easily by taking small lengths of tape at a time, instead of fighting against a large amount of that seal. With that done, we'll get to work taping off the whole car. All right, guys, we're ready to start applying some material to our Camaro, and you're probably thinking we're gonna be spraying on blue, black, purple, or something. Well, that's not the case. What we're gonna be spraying on is actually some clear or translucent base. The reason we're doing that is this will allow us to start with a wet finish. Right now, the car's been dry for several months or heck, even a year. And you start spraying on your graphic stripes and stuff, well, your base won't burn in and it'll leave you a dry spot. This will prevent that from happening. Now, what we're gonna be spraying today is BASF. It's got a lot of material that's gonna go on here, so let's go ahead and get started.
Now this sprays just like a base coat instead of like a clear coat. You'll want to lay down a nice medium amount, and since this is an intermediary to bond the follow-up colors to the car, we only need one layer sprayed on it.
Next up is to mix our first color, which is baby blue. We're gonna start with white. Then we'll dabble in a wee bit of blue. And wearing my special hat, I'll stir it up. It needs to be a little more blue, so we'll drizzle some in there. And once it's just right, lay it down on the car. The spray pattern might be a few inches wide, but we're going to mask off a pinstripe size area, which will remain this color when the other shades are sprayed on.
Still ahead, we wrap up our custom colors on the Cragar Camaro.
Hey guys, we're back and we're here in the booth. Tom's spraying some color on our Cragar Camaro. Now we've got the rendering right here on the wall of the paint booth as a reference. Now we've already got one color sprayed. It's like a baby blue. It's the lightest of the colors at this paint scheme. And as you can see here in the front of the car, it's like a pinstripe. And then as it goes down the side of the car, it gets wider as it gets onto the quarter panel. Now we have to mask over that so the other colors don't get on top of it. That's gonna take a steady hand and a couple of different types of tape.
Everything we're taping off here will remain this light blue color once the following colors go on the car.
Behold the artiste in his natural habitat. You can tell this is an authentic one by the razor blade in his mouth. Amazing. Such a rare sight.
With some blue mixed up that's just a bit darker than our first color, we'll start getting it laid down. This will make up a second stripe that leads into another blue that we'll be spraying next.
Each of these BASF colors needs to dry for 30 minutes at room temperature before you hit them with tape. This run will protect the second shade of blue that we just sprayed and create our second stripe.
Next up is the last of the blues, which BASF mixed for us. We call it Cragar Blue, and it's going to be the main graphic color on this Camaro. We laid down 3 medium coats with about 10 minutes in between each one. Well, we've got all of our blues sprayed, and the next thing we need to do is do some masking, cover up all the blues so we can spray the last color.
That next color is actually going to be black. It's going to be here on the sides, a little bit on the top and the hood and all that kind of stuff. But that's getting us closer and closer to unmasking this thing to show you guys what it's going to look like, and then a couple coats of that shiny. In order to make these graphics, we're using vinyl tape, which works really well when you're doing a lot of twisting and turning on the surface. On the more basic stuff, we can use regular masking tape, which will work just fine.
Then for the last color, anything that's not going to be blue gets sprayed black. Like the previous color, we'll do 3 medium coats with 10 minutes in between. Then we can unmask for clear.
Now we're planning to come back and buff this car later on, and we want to make sure that our graphics are protected. So we'll lay down a couple of extra coats of clear on top of the required 2. We'll give it 10 minutes to flash in the beginning, up to 25 for the last coat. This particular clear will flow out after a few seconds on the surface, which eliminates a lot of orange peel right off the bat.
We picked up some body mod components from 6LE Designs, including a chin spoiler and a splitter that are going to give us a nice aggressive look. We also got side and rear splitters to match the front. Well, with all of our body mods all finished up on our Cragar Camaro, it's time to add the finishing touch, which is of course going to be a set of Cragars. Now they just launched this brand new line of modern muscle wheels, and we chose this style with a black finish and machined accents. There's a couple of other different styles as well, one of which looks a lot like the original Cragar SS, but in modern sizes and offsets. Sizes range from 18 by 8 all the way up to 22 by 9. We chose 20 by 10. We wrapped them in some Firestone Firehawks.
Each style is available in 4 finishes. And that matte black with machine look really seals the deal on our Camaro. Now don't forget that this bad boy could be sitting in your driveway. To win our supercharged Cragar Camaro, hop on over to CragarWheel.com and get signed up. If any of you guys out there have ever fooled with a GMA-BODY like a Chevelle, GTO, or even a Cutlass, you know that they kind of are prone to rusting out around the windshield and the base of the cowl, and that causes other issues. But Automotive Direct has you covered. This is a cowl panel for a 66 and 67, and it runs from the bottom of the A-pillar all the way down to the rocker and the toe boards. And this piece has all the correct bends and contours that you'd be looking for as for an original. They're made of OE gauge steel, and considering the complexity of this particular panel, using it will save you a boatload of fabrication time.
If you're building a street strip setup with some serious horsepower and you're looking for a serious fuel pump to go with it, then you may want to take a look at the new VR1 brushless pump from Holley. This bad boy will support up to 2,400 horsepower with a carb or 2,150 with fuel injection. It's also compatible with methanol and E85. It comes with the controller and wiring and can either be fully submerged in the tank or mounted on the chassis. But with that nice billet aluminum construction, who'd want to hide it in the tank anyway? Well, that's all the time we have for today, so until next time, if you can't find them, grind them.